I woke up with my fingers buried in wet straw, my cheek pressed against the iron slats of a cage, and the smell of frightened beasts thick enough to taste. For one stupid second, I thought the afterlife had terrible cleaning standards. Then a horn blew outside the pen, 3 sharp notes, and my stomach went cold. I knew that horn. I knew the auction yard. I knew the cracked black feeding bowl beside my knee, the claw marks in the clay wall, the sour stink of sedative root, and the silver cub curled in the corner like a handful of storm clouds someone had forgotten to finish. And I knew exactly what morning it was. My name was Seryn Ashvale. I was 19 years old. I was a bloodline candidate of the Ashvale beast-taming clan, which sounds impressive until you realize my branch of the family had been treated like decorative furniture for the last 12 years. And somehow, impossibly violently, I had come back. I was a regressor. The last thing I remembered was dying at 26 under a broken arena arch while people screamed and my bonded beast bled lightning into the sand. The last thing I heard was my cousin Varek Ashvale laughing from the elder platform, telling the clan that some bloodlines were born to rule and some were born to be corrected. Charming man, terrible timing, worse hair. Now I was 7 years younger, kneeling in the clan auction pen on the exact morning he stole my inheritance beast. Outside the cage, handlers dragged iron chain leads across the yard. Beast merchants shouted numbers. Clan servants set out red registration tablets for the annual inheritance allocation. And somewhere beyond the pens, Varek was already wearing the white and crimson heir sash that was supposed to be mine. In my first life, I had panicked. That was the embarrassing truth. When Varek stepped into the pen with 4 elder witnesses, 2 contract scribes, and that smug smile he practiced in polished shields, I had cried, argued, begged, and grabbed at the lead rope of the Thundermane drake my father had left me. The drake looked strong. Everyone said it was strong. It had gold scales, black horns, and a roar that shook dust from rafters. Varek took it. He left me with the sickly silver cub in the corner. The clan laughed. I bonded the cub out of desperation, badly, loudly, and wrong. I tried to dominate it the way Ashvale tamers had always taught us. I pushed mana into its nerves. I forced commands. I fed it heating marrow, stimulant berries, and storm salt because every senior handler told me weak lightning beasts needed pressure. For 7 years, I thought the cub was defective. For 7 years, I thought I was defective. Then, 11 minutes before I died, the cub finally woke properly, and I saw what it had been the whole time. Not a silver hillcat. Not a failed stormwolf. Not trash. A dormant royal storm lion. A bloodline thought extinct for 300 years. And the cruel little joke was that royal storm lions did not awaken through domination. They awakened through trust, steady diet correction, inherited trait tracking, and gradual resonance. Quiet bonding, patient observation, exact markings, exact behavior. Everything my clan mocked as soft. Everything Varek considered useless. So when the pen gate opened and my cousin walked in with his polished boots, his white heir sash, and my father's inheritance tablet already tucked under his arm, I did not scream. I just wiped straw from my sleeve and looked at the silver cub. It had 1 pale stripe beneath the left eye, 2 dark specks behind the right ear, a faint forked shimmer in the tail tuft every time it breathed out. My memory burned open like a scroll behind my eyes. Not a real scroll, not a system, nothing convenient enough to make life easy. It was the future beast genealogy chart I had memorized during 7 miserable years of trying to prove I had not ruined my life. Thousands of bloodline patterns, mating records, recessive markings, temperament warnings, diet failures, awakening conditions, most of it useless unless I could match exact signs in front of me. But this cub matched. Not mostly. Not maybe. Exactly. Varek stopped outside my cage, smiled down at me, and said, "Good, you're awake. I was worried you'd miss the part where I saved the clan from your incompetence." I looked at him, then at the gold-scaled drake behind him. The drake's pupils were narrow. Its tail lashed too fast. It refused to meet Varek's eyes. In my first life, I had missed that. This time I smiled. And Seryn Ashvale, poor arrogant idiot, thought I was smiling because I had already lost. The Ashvale clan did not believe beasts were companions. That was our public lie, of course. The banners said harmony. The clan's songs said unity. The visitor plaques at the front gate said, "One breath, one bond, one bloodline." Very touching, very expensive calligraphy. Inside the breeding grounds, the real rule was control. Dominate the beast, break the resistance, establish command within 3 breaths, force mana submission before emotional attachment formed. The elders called it discipline. The handlers called it tradition. The beasts called it biting people, which honestly felt like a fair review. My father had believed differently. Seryn Ashvale had been the last quiet bond handler in the main line. He could calm a rage-horn bull with 2 fingers on its jaw. He could tell whether a hatchling would grow into a glider, sprinter, guardian, or nest maker by watching how it chose shade. Naturally, the clan called him sentimental. Then he died during a border beast tide, and his breeding rights, arena shares, and inheritance beast were sealed until I reached 19. That was supposed to protect me. The Ashvale clan loved protective laws, as long as no one inconvenient tried to use them. The inheritance allocation happened every 3 years. Every bloodline candidate received either a registered beast or a hatchling from their family line. If the beast accepted the bond during the public trial 7 days later, the candidate could claim active successor status. If not, the clan elders could reassign the inheritance. In my first life, Varek exploited a clause called emergency suitability. He argued that because my father's drake was too volatile for a low-ranked girl with weak command resonance, it would be safer under his care. He brought 2 senior handlers to testify. He brought a physician who claimed my mana channels were underdeveloped. He brought Elder Merwin, his mother's closest ally, to nod gravely like a funeral crow in gold earrings. And I, being young and furious, and not yet educated by betrayal, refused to read the contract. I only saw the theft. I did not see the trap. By fighting the reassignment publicly, I had been marked unstable. By grabbing the drake's lead, I had triggered a beast agitation penalty. By shouting that the silver cub was worthless, I had damaged my own claim under clan welfare rules. Varek did not just steal my inheritance. He made me look unfit to receive any inheritance at all. This time, I listened before I reacted. That is the thing about dying once. It does wonders for your patience. Varek opened the cage himself, because of course he did. A proper heir might have let a handler do it. Varek liked witnesses to see his hands near other people's property. Behind him, the drake stood on a bronze chain. Its name was Oraclash. In my first life, I thought that name sounded noble. Now it sounded like something a 12-year-old would carve onto a practice sword. Oraclash had 6 gold plates along each flank, a dark horn ridge, and a deep chest that made old tamers whistle through their teeth. It looked like power. It looked like victory. It looked like the kind of beast that made sponsors reach for their coin purses. It was also not my father's true inheritance beast. Not anymore. The genealogy chart in my memory shifted, and I remembered the line entry that took me 5 years to find. Gold Thunder Drake, Ashvale branch strain, visually dominant, command-sensitive, prone to rejection under false lineage claims, requires matched breath rhythm from registered kin handler. Registered kin handler. Not cousin with pretty boots. That mattered. Varek had the paperwork, but not the rhythm. He had the chain, but not the bond. The silver cub in the corner lifted its head. It was painfully small. Its fur lay flat in damp clumps. Its ribs showed when it breathed. One ear had folded from birth weakness or poor pen conditions. Its eyes were cloudy gray, not storm blue like healthy lightning beasts. The handlers had painted a small black mark on its crate tag. Defective. I almost laughed. In the future, I had learned that royal storm lions hid their power by mimicking weakness. Their first coat dulled under stress. Their eyes clouded when exposed to stimulant feed. Their pulse slowed when surrounded by dominant mana. Every traditional Ashvale test made them look worse. The clan had been trying to wake Thunder with a whip. No wonder Thunder stayed asleep. Varek crouched in front of me and lowered his voice just enough to pretend he was being kind. Seryn, don't embarrass yourself today. Sign the exchange quietly. Take the cub, raise it as a yard pet. Maybe in 5 years they'll let you manage feed inventory. I looked at the exchange tablet. It had my name already etched into the lower line. He had expected me to resist. He wanted it. So I asked, is the arena challenge clause included? His smile flickered. Only for half a breath. Beautiful. The arena challenge clause allowed a disputed candidate to accept the lesser beast and still challenge for succession if that beast awakened legally during the public bonding trial. Most people ignored it because lesser beast usually meant lesser beast. A mudhound did not become a sky wyvern because someone read a clause with confidence. But a dormant royal storm lion. That was different. Varek laughed too loudly. You want the clause? Fine, I'll include it. Elder Merowyn frowned. Varek. He waved her off. Let her have her little dignity. I touched the tablet. The contract warmed under my fingers. One line glowed. Voluntary acceptance of alternate inheritance beast. The second line glowed. Challenger retains public trial claim if alternate beast demonstrates superior bloodline awakening under clan witness. The third line, the one Varek cared about, glowed red. Challenger forfeits dispute rights if alternate beast fails to awaken within 7 days. In my first life, that line had ended me. This time, it was the countdown. I signed. Varek looked delighted. The silver cub sneezed. And somewhere in my chest, for the first time in 7 years and 1 death, I felt calm. Jonah found me 18 minutes after the allocation ended. He was carrying a cracked water bucket, 3 clean cloths, and the expression of someone who had already decided to help, and was annoyed that I might make it difficult. Jonah was a stable boy, technically. In practice, he did the work of 4 handlers, 2 record clerks, and at least 1 elder who thought shouting counted as management. He was 17, narrow-shouldered, brown-skinned from sun and yard dust, with black hair always tied back using feed twine. In my first life, he had been the only person who brought my cub clean water after Varek's friends forgot. I remembered Jonah at 24, standing beside me in the ruined arena, bleeding from a cut above his eyebrow, still trying to shield the beast everyone else had called useless. Some debts are too quiet for witnesses. I was not going to forget his. He stopped outside the low quarantine stall, where I had been moved, and looked at the silver cub curled against my knee. They gave you Cloudbite, he said. Is that its name? That's what the handlers call it, he winced, mostly when it bites. The cub opened one cloudy eye and showed 5 tiny teeth. I liked it immediately. I'm renaming it, I said. Jonah blinked. You can do that. Under Bloodline trial law, yes. Until public bonding, the candidate may name the beast for resonance purposes. That is oddly specific. Clan law gets very detailed when rich people argue over animals. He huffed a laugh, then glanced toward the yard. Varek's people are saying you accepted the cub because you knew you couldn't handle Auraclash. Good. That doesn't bother you. It bothers me less than dying. He stared. Right. I had forgotten normal people disliked comments like that before breakfast. I softened my voice. I mean, it bothers me. I'm just choosing not to feed it. Jonah looked like he wanted to ask 6 questions and knew he would only get answers to 2. Instead, he set down the bucket. What do you need? In my first life, I had needed sympathy. This time, I needed goat milk, boiled silver leaf, crushed moon barley, clean bedding, and someone who knew which storage shed had been neglected since last winter. I told him exactly that. His eyebrows climbed. Moon barley for a lightning cub. For a sick stomach, handlers use storm salt. Handlers also put stimulant mash in a beast with cloudy eyes and a trembling tail, then call it defective when it gets worse. Jonah looked at the cub again. This was my first milestone. Not power, not awakening, not dramatic lightning. Food. The genealogy chart in my memory had an entire section on failed royal storm lion awakenings. The first error was always diet. Their dormant organs could not process heat-heavy feed until the resonance channels opened. Stimulants inflamed them. Storm salt dehydrated them. Command mana made their pulse crash. Quiet bond diets started boring. Warm milk, soft grain, cooling herbs, tiny portions every 3 hours, no forced eye contact, no shouting, no dominance postures, no touching the head unless invited. Terribly unheroic. Exactly why the clan had ignored it. I spent the first day cleaning. Not training, cleaning. The stall had old stimulant powder in the cracks. The bedding smelled sour. The water basin had green scale around the rim. The cub's paws were caked with auction yard mud, and one of its claws had split. Every time I reached too fast, it flinched. So I slowed down. I sat 4 feet away, turned sideways, and let it watch me crush moon barley with the flat of a spoon. I hummed the old Ashvale low-breath rhythm my father used to use, but softer, slower, without mana pressure. The cub's ears twitched. Jonah returned at dusk, with the supplies, and a stolen look over his shoulder. "I didn't steal," he said immediately. "I didn't ask. You had the face. I have several faces. That one was the 'please confess before I make a list' face." He handed me the boiled silver leaf wrapped in cloth. I signed it out as sick foal feed. That is technically true. It is a lion. Not yet. Jonah looked at me sharply. I kept my eyes on the cub. That night, I named her Thessa. Not Thunderfang, not Skybreaker, not anything Varek would choose after staring into a mirror for inspiration. Thessa, after the old word for held breath before rain. When I whispered it, the cub stopped chewing. Her cloudy eyes shifted toward me. 1 breath. 2. 3. A faint silver line appeared along her spine and vanished. Jonah dropped the bucket. I pretended not to notice, mostly because if I reacted too strongly, Thessa would retreat. Royal storm lion cubs did not reward excitement. They rewarded consistency. Inside my memory, the genealogy chart aligned another entry. Dormant royal strain, first response to chosen name, spinal shimmer under low breath rhythm, diet correction accepted. Milestone 1. The smallest possible proof. The kind no elder would respect. The kind that mattered more than every roar in the auction yard. On the second day, Varek came to inspect my failure. He brought 9 people. That was his favorite kind of kindness, the kind that needed an audience. He had 2 junior cousins, 3 handlers, Elder Merowyn's scribe, 1 arena clerk, and a girl from the main branch named Ivala who used to repeat insults softly after Varek said them, like a decorative echo with better hair. Oraclash walked behind him on a reinforced chain, gold scales gleaming, black horns polished, tail blade wrapped in red silk to show possession. Varek had already started dressing, like the drake belonged to him. Matching accents, matching arrogance, same amount of biting risk. I was sitting outside Thessa's stall with a slate board on my knees, drawing 12 tiny marks from memory. Eye stripe, ear specks, tail shimmer, paw pad color, breath rate, whisker angle, reaction to copper bells, reaction to low rhythm, stomach tolerance, claw split pattern, heat response, and shadow preference. Jonah had built a screen from old reed mats so Thessa could eat without being stared at. It looked ugly and worked perfectly. Varek stopped in front of the screen. "What is this?" "A screen." "I can see that." Then the question answered itself. One of the junior cousins snorted, then pretended to cough when Varek glanced at him. Varek's smile thinned. "You're hiding the cub." "I'm reducing stress." You mean hiding weakness? That is one interpretation. He stepped closer. Move it. No. The yard went quiet in that hungry way people get when they smell trouble and do not have to pay for it. Varek tilted his head. No. No, I said. During the 7-day trial preparation, the assigned candidate controls the feeding, rest, and handling conditions of the registered alternate beast unless a medical examiner declares emergency risk. Clause 4, line 6. The arena clerk's eyes flicked to the tablet at his waist. Varek noticed. That irritated him more than my refusal. He leaned down, voice low. Seryn, you're playing with rules you don't understand. I almost admired the confidence. It takes real talent to be that wrong before lunch. I understand enough, I said, to know you should not bring Oraclash within 10 feet of a quarantine stall while his rejection signs are still active. That did it. Varek laughed. The handlers laughed because he did, which is how you know a laugh is salaried. Rejection signs, he said. You mean the strongest drake in the yard, the beast that accepted my lead in front of 4 elders. Oraclash's tail snapped once behind him. Not violent, not yet. But the rhythm was wrong. I mean the drake has not accepted your breath, I said. Its pupils are pinched. Its left horn vent is dry. It has refused your right side approach twice since you entered. And if you force command pressure again before dawn tomorrow, it will mark you as a false handler. The arena clerk looked at Oraclash. So did 2 handlers. Varek's face hardened. I should mention that in the Ashvale clan, being corrected by a 19-year-old girl in a patched trial robe was considered a public health hazard to male pride. Seryn, he said too softly, you may want to remember who has the heir sash. And you may want to remember that beasts don't read sashes. There it was. The warning. Clear, calm, and absolutely wasted. Varek stepped around the read screen. Thessa growled. It was not loud. It was not impressive. It sounded like a kettle trying to threaten a mountain. Varek looked down at her and smiled. This is what you gave up my drake for. I did not correct him. Not my drake. Not anymore. Not if he kept making choices this helpful. He reached toward Thessa's head. I stood. Don't touch her. He paused with his hand in the air. The yard stopped breathing. In my first life, this was where I would have slapped his hand away. Then I would have been written up for assaulting a registered candidate. Then Elder Merowyn would have used the violation to restrict my access to feed stores. Then Thessa would have starved slowly into instability. This time, I took one step back. Malicious compliance is very peaceful when you have read the rulebook, and your enemy has not. You may request a witness inspection, I said. Put it on record. Varek's eyes narrowed. You're inviting me. I'm complying with inspection rules. Fine, he looked at the clerk. Record it. The clerk hesitated. Candidate Varek requests witness inspection of alternate inheritance beast, day 2 of trial preparation. Also record that I object to physical contact due to stress signs, I said. The clerk swallowed. Candidate Seryn objects to physical contact due to stress signs. Varek smiled again, because he thought written words existed for decoration. He reached down. Thessa did not bite him. That would have been too simple. She went perfectly still. Her breath slowed to 3 beats per minute. Her eyes clouded over completely. The silver line on her spine disappeared. To everyone else, she looked weaker. To me, she looked royal. Dormant storm lions entered stillness when approached by false dominance. It was not fear, it was refusal, a sealed line response. Varek straightened, pathetic. Inspection complete, I asked. He wiped his fingers on a cloth as if touching her had dirtied him. Complete. The clerk recorded it. That record became very important later. Varek turned to leave, then glanced back. 7 days, cousin. At dawn, everyone will see what kind of beast answers you. I looked past him at Oraclash. The drake was staring at my left hand, where my father's old breath scar crossed my palm. Not Varek's sash. My scar. 7 days, I said. Try not to get rejected before then. By the third morning, Varek had decided to win loudly. Banners went up around the public beast arena. Sponsor boxes were repainted. The clan's outer families were invited to attend the bonding trial, which was normally a private affair unless someone smelled scandal or profit. Varek smelled both. His supporters spread the story exactly as expected. I had accepted a defective cub. I was pretending to be calm because I had given up. I was using soft handling because I lacked command strength. I had insulted Oraclash out of jealousy. I had probably cried in the grain shed, which was rude because I had only cried once, and that was because Thessa sneezed moon barley directly into my sleeve. Meanwhile, Varek trained Oraclash in the open yard for 3 hours every morning. He forced command circles. He snapped lead chains. He used thundergongs. Every time Oraclash resisted, Varek added more pressure. The crowd loved it. That is the problem with people who do not understand beasts. They think resistance means the handler is powerful enough to be tested. Sometimes it means the beast is politely deciding where to bury you. I did not interfere. I watched. I recorded. And I trained Thessa in ways so unimpressive that 2 passing cousins asked if I had confused beast-taming with babysitting. Day 3 was sent trust. I gave Thessa 5 cloth squares, clean linen, my sleeve, Jonah's glove, old drake leather, and copper-stained chain wrap. She ignored the clean linen. She sniffed my sleeve for 2 breaths. She dragged Jonah's glove under her chin and fell asleep on it, which made him turn red enough to concern a healer. She hissed at the chain wrap. Good. Royal storm lions remembered pain through metal scent. So we removed every iron hook from her stall. Day 4 was diet response. We increased moon barley by 1 spoon and added crushed reindeer. No stimulant, no storm salt, no marrow. Her eyes cleared for 6 minutes after sunset, turning pale blue around the edges. I did not cheer. I wanted to. I wanted to grab Jonah by the shoulders and shout that the future was changing, that she was alive, that maybe this time I would not spend years apologizing to a beast I had hurt by trusting idiots. Instead, I breathed slowly. Thessa watched my chest rise and fall. Then she copied me. Milestone 2. Shared breath. Not command. Resonance. Jonah saw it too. He sat across the stall with both hands over his mouth. You're doing it, he whispered. No, I whispered back. She is. He looked at me then, really looked, like he was seeing something under the patched robe and tired eyes. You changed, he said. I slept badly. You speak like someone older. I looked at Thessa. I made older mistakes. He did not ask more. That was one of the reasons I trusted him. Day 5 brought the first real test. The clan physician arrived with Elder Merwin's seal and 2 handlers carrying a sedation kit. Apparently, Varek had become concerned for my welfare. Whenever powerful relatives become concerned for your welfare, check for witnesses and exits. The physician, Master Pell, smelled like mint oil and expensive cowardice. In my first life, he had declared my mana channels weak after measuring me with a cracked resonance needle. Later, I learned he had been paid 40 silver crowns to use the wrong calibration. This time, he entered Thessa's stall and said, "The cub requires standard stimulation therapy." No. He frowned. "Candidate Seryn, this is a medical order." Then provide the written diagnosis. He blinked. Diagnosis, observed symptoms, recommended dosage, risk note, and emergency authority line, I said. You know, medicine. Jonah coughed into his sleeve. Master Pell's lips tightened. Do you challenge my expertise? I request documentation of it. A small crowd had gathered outside. Excellent. Documentation is more fun with witnesses. Pell looked at Thessa, then at the sedative kit. Clouded eyes, low pulse, delayed aggression, weak lightning response. Clouded eyes cleared 6 minutes yesterday. Low pulse occurs during false dominance approach. Delayed aggression is not a disease, and lightning response in dormant cubs should not be forced before channel opening. The silence after that was delicious. Pell narrowed his eyes. Where did you learn that? From 7 years of failure, grief, illegal archive reading, and dying under a collapsing arena, but that felt too personal. My father kept notes. A half-truth is just a lie wearing formal clothes. Elder Merowyn's scribe wrote that down. Pell tried a different angle. If you refuse treatment and the cub fails, responsibility is yours. Yes, I said. Record that I refuse stimulant therapy and accept care responsibility. His expression brightened. Poor man, he thought that was the trap. I added, also record that Master Pell recommended stimulant therapy without bloodline classification, pulse trend, diet log review, or stress response testing. His expression stopped brightening. The scribe hesitated. Record it, I said gently, unless the clan no longer records medical trial interventions. The scribe recorded it. That was milestone 3. Not a magical glow, not a roar. A paper trail. Varek was not the only one who could use systems. On the 6th day, Oraclash tried to leave Varek. Not dramatically. There was no grand escape, no shattered wall, no roaring chase through the market. That would have been easier for Varek to explain. He could have blamed sabotage, unstable breeding, bad weather, jealous cousins, maybe ghosts if he got desperate. Instead, during morning command practice, Oraclash simply stepped outside Varek's circle. 1 foot. Then another. A 1-inch break in the chalk line. Every senior handler saw it. The chalk circle was old Ashvale technique. When a beast accepted command, it held inside the handler's breath boundary until released. If it crossed without permission, it meant the bond was incomplete. If it crossed twice, it meant rejection was forming. If it crossed 3 times before public trial, the candidate was supposed to suspend forced training and request mediation. Varek dragged it back with a chain. That counted as 1. Oraclash crossed again 7 minutes later. Varek struck the ground with his command rod, not the beast. He was smarter than that in public, but the threat carried mana. Oraclash's horn vents flared dry white. That counted as 2. I watched from the shade beside the infirmary wall, Thessa tucked in a sling against my chest, because she had decided walking was beneath her during digestion hours. Jonah stood beside me with a feed basket. You're counting, he said. So are they. 3 handlers across the yard were pretending not to stare. Will they stop him? Not unless someone with rank makes them. Elder Merowyn won't. No. Then what happens if there's a 3rd crossing? Under the old rules, immediate review. And under Varek's version. I watched Varek lift his chin at the watching sponsors. He calls it advanced resistance training. Jonah muttered something rude about advanced stupidity. Thessa made a tiny rumbling sound against my collarbone. Her eyes were half clear now, silver blue. The folded ear had lifted. Her fur still looked dull unless sunlight touched it at an angle, and then faint lines appeared beneath the surface like lightning trapped under ice. The genealogy chart in my memory kept offering possibilities, but never certainty. That was the limit. I had to observe, I had to match, I had to adjust. Future knowledge was not prophecy. It was a map drawn by a grieving idiot who had taken too long to understand the road. At noon, Varek summoned me to the arena contract hall. I went because refusing would help him. The hall was built from black stone and polished bonewood, with 6 oath lamps hanging above the central table. The lamps burned blue when contracts were valid, red when blood rights were disputed, and white when beast law took priority over human politics. In my first life, those lamps terrified me. This time, I found them comforting. Rules were not kind. but they were consistent if you forced important people to read them out loud. Varek waited with Elder Merowyn, 2 arena clerks, and a formal challenge tablet. He looked tired around the eyes. Oraclash must have slept poorly. Good. Seryn, he said warmly, which meant someone important was nearby. I want to offer you a final chance to withdraw. No. His smile held. Think carefully. Tomorrow at dawn, the public bonding trial will be witnessed by 11 elders, 3 sponsor houses, and the outer branches. If your cub fails, your father's line loses active succession rights for 9 years. I know. If you withdraw now, I can arrange a caretaker position. A feed inventory position. His eye twitched, a respectable one. How generous. Elder Merowyn spoke. Child, pride will not revive your father's reputation. There it was. The old hook. In my first life, they used my father like a knife. His reputation, his death, his unfinished work, his alleged softness, every mention cut. This time, I did not bleed for them. My father's reputation, I said, is not the one being tested tomorrow. Varek placed the challenge tablet on the table, then signed the arena challenge contract. I read it. Every line. Slowly. Varek sighed after 2 minutes. I kept reading. Elder Merowyn tapped 1 ring against the table after 4 minutes. I read the witness appendix twice. There was the forfeiture clause. There was the public awakening clause. There was the beast rejection liability clause. And there, tucked under challenge conduct, was the line Varek had not noticed because rich boys rarely read consequences that apply to themselves. If a candidate enters public trial with a disputed inheritance beast, and said beast rejects the candidate under witness, all derivative claims made by that candidate against the challenger are suspended pending bloodline review. In normal language, if Oraclash rejected him tomorrow, every claim Varek made to take my inheritance froze. Not reversed. Frozen. Then if Thessa awakened superior bloodline within the same trial, my claim became primary. Not because I tricked him. Because he insisted on putting both beasts in the arena under oath lamps. I touched the tablet. Before I sign, I said, I want one addition. Varek laughed. You are not in a position to negotiate. I want the trial conducted under full old law witness, white lamp authority. Elder Merowyn's face changed. Only slightly. But I saw it. White lamp authority meant beast law outranked elder preference. It was rarely used because it made tamers look less important than beasts, which, if you asked the beasts, was overdue. Varek waved a hand. Fine. Varek, Elder Merowyn said. He ignored her again. It was becoming a habit. I signed. The lamps burned blue, then red, then a thin line of white at the core. Varek looked pleased. Elder Merowyn did not. On the way out, he leaned close and whispered, Tomorrow, when that cub trembles in front of everyone, remember that I offered mercy. I looked at him. Then I looked at Oraclash waiting outside, head turned away from his handler, horn vents dry as bone. You keep offering things that aren't yours, I said. Maybe that's why your beasts don't answer. The last night before the trial, rain came. Not a storm, not yet. Just a slow silver rain that softened the dust and made the breeding ground smell like wet hay, iron, and old stone. Thessa sat in the doorway of her stall and watched every drop. Royal storm lions loved rain before they loved lightning. Another detail the clan had forgotten. They chased thunder and missed the water that carried it. I sat beside her with my back against the post, one palm open on my knee. Not reaching. Offering. Jonah repaired a loose hinge 6 feet away, even though it had already been repaired twice. He was nervous and pretending tools could fix that. She needs to sleep, he said. So do you. Stable boys don't sleep before trials. Candidates don't either. Then we're both being stupid. Efficiently stupid, I said. There's a difference. He smiled, then looked toward the arena lights glowing beyond the rain. "They're saying Varek ordered a victory feast for tomorrow." "He would. Roast river stag, honey cakes, 6 musicians." "Only 6, how humble." "And a formal declaration draft, nomming him primary heir." I rubbed my thumb over the scar on my palm. In my first life, that declaration had been read while I stood beside Thessa, humiliated and shaking, with a beast I did not understand, and a clan that had already decided I was proof my father's methods failed. I remembered the exact words. The Ashvale clan honors strength proven through command. No one wrote songs for patience. Not then. Maybe tomorrow. Jonah set down the hinge tool. "Seryn, what happens if she doesn't awaken?" There it was, the question we had both avoided. The genealogy chart in my memory was not a guarantee. Thessa had shown 8 matching signs out of 12. Her diet response was good. Her breath resonance was stable for 19 counts. Her spinal shimmer appeared under rain scent. Her tail fork had brightened. Her trust circle had narrowed from 4 feet to 1. But awakening required choice. Not mine. Hers. "If she doesn't," I said, "I withdraw after the trial, file welfare protest against Varek's handling of Oriclash, and take whatever penalty comes." Jonah stared. "You would still protect the Drake." "Oriclash didn't steal from me." "No, but Varek did." "Yes. And if you lose, Varek becomes heir." "Maybe." "You're very calm for someone saying maybe." I looked at Thessa. She had placed one paw on my open palm without me noticing. Tiny claws, warm pads, a pulse like distant rain. "I spent my first life trying to win the way they taught me," I said. "Pressure, command, pride. Every time I lost, I pressed harder. I hurt her because I was scared of looking weak." Jonah did not speak. The rain filled the silence. This time, "I'm not making my fear her burden." Thessa's paw pressed slightly harder. Jonah looked away first. He had the decency to pretend it was because of rain. At midnight, I checked the marks one final time. The stripe under Thessa's left eye had brightened from pale gray to silver white. The 2 specks behind her right ear had become tiny forked points. Her tail tuft shimmered in 3 branches now, not 2. Her breath held steady at 8 counts per minute during rest. When I hummed the low breath rhythm, she did not merely listen. She answered. A vibration rose through my palm into my wrist, my elbow, my chest. Not lightning, not yet, something below lightning. The place lightning waits before deciding whether the sky deserves it. My mana channels responded with a faint ache. In my first life, forced bonding had ripped my channels raw. This was different. Gentle but heavier, like a door opening inward. Milestone 4. First resonance return. Jonah saw the hair along my arms lift. "Is that supposed to happen?" "No idea," I said. "That is not comforting." "It's honest." Thessa leaned against my leg. For 7 years in the first timeline, I had called her Cloudbite because that was the name stamped on her crate. A joke name. A defective name. A name given by people who never listened long enough to hear her answer. Now I whispered, "Thessa." The rain outside paused, or maybe I only imagined it. Her eyes opened. Clear blue. No clouding. No fear. At dawn, the arena horn sounded once. The public bonding trial had begun. Jonah stood and offered me my patched gray trial cloak. It had been my father's once, cut down for me. The hem was uneven. The shoulder clasp was tarnished. Varek's supporters would laugh at it. "Let them." Thessa stepped out of the stall on her own. Not carried. Not dragged. Not commanded. She walked beside me through the rain-wet yard with her tail held low and calm, while servants, handlers, and cousins turned to stare. Halfway to the arena gate, Jonah fell into step on my other side. "You know," he said quietly, "if this works, everyone will say they believed in you." "I know. What will you say?" I looked at the open arena. the white oath lamps burning above the sand, Varek waiting in crimson silk with Oraclash chained beside him. I'll ask where they were during feeding. The public beast arena could hold 3,000 people. By dawn, it held almost 4,000. People stood in stairways, leaned over railings, crowded behind sponsor boxes, and packed the outer branch terraces with breakfast buns in hand like my inheritance dispute was morning theater. To be fair, it was better than most theater. Fewer fake deaths, more legal consequences. The arena floor was white sand marked with 5 concentric bonding circles. At the northern end stood the elder platform. 11 elders sat beneath storm banners, their robes layered in blue, black, and silver. Elder Merowyn sat third from the center, face stiff enough to crack walnuts. Above them hung the oath lamps. 6 blue, 6 red, 1 white. The white lamp was old, older than the arena. It was shaped like a lion's open eye, carved from moonstone and stormglass. I had never seen it lit in my first life, because Varek had not been foolish enough to allow old law authority then. This time, it burned with a thin, pale flame. Varek stood in the central circle. He looked perfect. Crimson trial robe, gold thread sash, hair tied with a black horn clasp, Oraclash at his left side, massive and gleaming, every scale polished until the crowd could see itself reflected in stolen power. Then I entered with Thessa. The laughter started in the East Terrace. It rolled. Not cruel from everyone. Some people laughed because crowds laugh. Some laughed because the cub was small and damp and walking with the grave dignity of a wet sock. Some laughed because Varek's supporters had spent 6 days teaching them what to expect. Thessa stopped. I stopped with her. I did not pull. I did not whisper reassurance. I just breathed. 1 count. 2. 3. The laughter thinned. Thessa walked again. Jonah took his place with the support handlers at the arena edge. He was not allowed beside me in the circle, but he stood where Thessa could see him. That mattered. The chief arena elder rose. Public bonding trial of candidate Seryn Ashvale and candidate Seryn Ashvale. Disputed inheritance claim. Alternate beast challenge. White lamp authority invoked by mutual contract. The crowd murmured. Varek glanced toward me. Still smiling. Still convinced I had brought a candle to a lightning storm. The first phase was command acknowledgement. Varek went first by rank claim. He stepped into the center of the circle, placed his palm over his heart, and spoke Oraclash's registered inheritance name. By blood, breath, and command, I call Ashvale Thunder Drake Oraclash to heal. His mana flared. Gold light rippled over the sand. Oraclash lowered its head. The crowd roared approval. Varek's smile widened. Then the white lamp flickered. Not blue. White. A proper bonded beast under command acknowledgement steps toward the handler's heart line. Oraclash had lowered its head, yes. But it had not stepped forward. The chief elder noticed. Second call. Varek's jaw tightened. He raised his command rod. Oraclash, heal. This time, the drake's tail struck the sand. Once. A warning. The crowd quieted. Varek pushed more mana. I saw the exact moment Oraclash decided enough was enough. Not rage. Not madness. Just refusal. The drake lifted its head, turned away from Varek, and walked out of the inner circle. No roar. No attack. No spectacle. 1 step. 2. 3. It crossed the chalk line cleanly. The white lamp flared. The arena went silent. The chief elder's voice changed. Rejection sign recorded. Varek's face drained, then flushed. Oraclash is testing me. The white lamp burned brighter. Beast law did not appreciate commentary. Candidate, the chief elder said, you may attempt final acknowledgement once. No command rod. Varek looked betrayed by the universe. He dropped the rod. For the first time in 7 days, he had to ask instead of force. "Oraclash," he said, voice low. "Come." The drake looked at him, then looked past him. At me. No. At my hand. At my father's breath scar. The crowd began whispering. Varek saw it and panicked. That was his true mistake. Not theft, not arrogance, panic. He grabbed the chain. The white lamp flashed so bright the sand turned silver. Oraclash reared back, not striking, just pulling free. The chain snapped from Varek's hand and fell in a dead coil at his feet. The chief elder slammed his staff once. False handling pressure recorded. Disputed inheritance claim suspended pending bloodline review. There it was. The first collapse. Varek staggered as if someone had hit him. Elder Merowyn stood. "Chief elder, the beast is unstable." The white lamp burned hotter. The chief elder looked at her. Under white lamp authority, elder speculation is secondary to beast response. I would have paid 100 gold crowns to have that sentence embroidered on Varek's sash. Then it was my turn. Thessa and I stepped into the inner circle. Someone in the West Terrace laughed once, nervously, then stopped when no one joined. The chief elder looked almost tired. "Candidate Seryn Ashvale, call your alternate beast." I knelt in the sand. Not because I was weak. Because Thessa was small. Because trust does not require making someone look up at you. I placed my palm flat on the sand between us. No command. No pressure. No rod. "Thessa," I said. The name moved through the arena like a breath under a door. Thessa looked at my hand. Then at Jonah. Then at the white lamp. Then she stepped forward and placed her paw on my palm. The crowd did not understand at first. Why would they? It was small. Quiet, no lightning, no roar. Then my mana answered hers. A silver line ran from her paw into my scar. The sand trembled. The white lamp bent toward us. Not flickered. Bent. Thessa's cloudy kitten fur lifted as if wind had entered from below the world. The stripe under her eye blazed white. The 2 specks behind her ear opened into forked marks. Her tailed tuft split into 3 bright streams of silver-blue light. The genealogy chart in my memory burned with the final match. Royal Stormlion dormant line. Awakening condition met. Chosen bond, low breath resonance, rain-fed diet correction, no domination imprint, legal alternate inheritance activation under old law witness. Thessa opened her mouth. The sound that came out was not a roar. It was thunder heard from very far away, deciding to come closer. Every beast in the arena bowed its head. Oraclash included. The white lamp turned brilliant. The chief elder whispered, and somehow the whole arena heard him. Superior bloodline awakening recorded. Varek tried to object 4 times. The first time, no sound came out. The second time, the chief elder told him to remain silent while the oath lamps finished recording. The third time, Oraclash growled without looking at him. The fourth time, Elder Merowyn grabbed his sleeve hard enough to wrinkle the crimson silk, which was the closest thing to maternal wisdom I had ever seen from her. Thessa stood beside me, no larger than before, but impossible to dismiss now. Her fur still looked soft. Her folded ear still bent slightly at the tip. She was still thin from neglect. But beneath the surface, silver-blue light moved in slow pulses, each one matching my breath. The arena did not cheer immediately. People needed time to rearrange their entire worldview. That is difficult before breakfast. The chief elder called for records. The arena clerk read the contract aloud. Every line. Voluntary acceptance of alternate inheritance beast. Public trial claim retained upon superior bloodline awakening. Disputed inheritance beast rejection suspends derivative claims. White lamp authority supersedes elder preference. Medical intervention, records admissible. Witness inspection, records admissible. Varek's face changed with each sentence. It was like watching a man discover stairs by falling down them. Then the clerk read the Day 2 inspection. Candidate Varek requested physical inspection, despite candidate Seryn's stress objection. Silver Cub entered sealed stillness under false dominance approach. At the time, everyone had thought that proved weakness. Under White Lamp authority, the chief elder asked the senior beast archivist to interpret sealed stillness. The archivist was 83, half-deaf, and far too old to fear Varek's branch. She shuffled forward with a magnifying lens, peered at Thessa, then at my records, then at Thessa again. "Royal line," she said. The arena exhaled. Elder Merowyn said, "Impossible." The archivist did not even look at her. Rare is not impossible. It is only inconvenient to people who sold the wrong beast. I adored her instantly. Then came the physician's record. Master Pell had recommended stimulant therapy without classification, pulse trend, diet review, or stress testing. I had refused. I had accepted care responsibility. I had documented Thessa's diet, breath rate, markings, and resonance response across 6 days. The chief elder examined my slate boards. There were 7 of them, 1 for each day. Messy, detailed, stained with moon barley, and more valuable than Varek's entire victory feast. "You kept trait records?" he asked. "Yes." Without instruction. My father taught observation before command. Elder Merowyn's mouth tightened. Varek snapped. Her father's methods were rejected. The white lamp flared. Thessa's ears went flat. The chief elder slowly turned to Varek. "Candidate, your beast has rejected you, your claim is suspended, and you are speaking against the deceased registered breeder whose line just produced a royal awakening. Choose your next words like they cost money." He did not choose them well. "She cheated," Varek said. There it was. The last refuge of people who confuse losing with injustice. I stood, keeping my hand near Thessa, but not touching unless she chose it. "How?" I asked. My voice carried, because the arena was silent. Varek pointed at my slates. Those records, that knowledge, she must have accessed restricted archives. A tiny problem for him, I had. In the first timeline. 7 years in the future. After the archives had opened during the North Kennel scandal. In this timeline, there was no proof because time itself had been rude enough not to leave paperwork. The chief elder looked at me. "Candidate Seryn." "I observed markings and behavior," I said. "I changed diet based on visible symptoms. I avoided force because force worsened those symptoms. I documented all of it. If that is cheating, the clan has a larger problem than my cousin." A murmur moved through the crowd. Jonah stood at the arena edge, grinning like he was trying not to and failing badly. Varek saw him. That was unfortunate for Varek, because cornered people love kicking downward. "You," he barked. "Stable boy, you helped her falsify those records." The arena's mood shifted. Not in Varek's favor. Jonah went still. I did too. Varek could insult me. He had for years. He could call Thessa defective. The white lamp was already correcting that. But Jonah had carried water, cleaned bedding, and risked his position for a cub no one valued. I looked at the chief elder. Permission to submit support witness. Granted. Jonah stepped into the arena with his hands clean, his work tunic patched, and his jaw set. The chief elder asked, "Did you falsify candidate Seryn's records?" "No, elder." "Did you provide unauthorized medicine?" "No, elder. Feed stores issued moon barley and silverleaf under sickfoal care, signed by me, checked by yard clerk Hessa." "Did candidate Seryn force resonance?" "No, elder. She mostly sat there breathing and being stubborn." A ripple of laughter passed through the stands. Even the chief elder's mouth twitched. Jonah glanced at me. She let the cub choose every step. The white lamp brightened. Truth acknowledged. That was the moment Varek finally understood. Not the awakening, not the contract, not even Oraclash's rejection. He understood when a stable boy's plain testimony weighed more than his heir sash. Power had shifted, and it had shifted in public. The consequences did not fall like a sword. They fell like ledgers closing, one line after another. First, Oraclash was removed from Varek's custody. Not awarded to me immediately. Beast law was careful, and despite everything, I respected that. The Drake had rejected false handling under pressure. It needed 30 days of neutral care before any reassignment. But Varek's claim to it was suspended, and his use of my father's inheritance tablet was frozen. Second, the challenge contract activated the Bloodline review. That meant every statement Varek had made to justify taking Oraclash had to be examined under oath. His claim that I had weak resonance. His claim that the Drake was unsafe with me. His claim that Thessa was a low-grade alternate with no inheritance value. Third, Master Pell's medical certification was pulled for audit. He tried to leave through the west gate. The sponsor house guard stopped him politely, which is always scarier than being stopped rudely. Polite guards have paperwork. Fourth, Elder Merowyn was asked to recuse herself from all review proceedings involving Varek's succession status. She did not enjoy that. Her face remained composed, but one of her rings cracked under her thumb. A small thing, barely audible, deeply satisfying. Varek stood in the center of the arena, watching his future shrink. Then came the part where powerful people remembered negotiation existed. The chief elder called a recess before final succession declaration. The crowd stayed because nobody leaves when a noble branch is bleeding status in public. I was brought to the side chamber beneath the elder platform. Thessa walked beside me. Jonah waited at the door until I turned back and said, "He comes in." An elder guard frowned. Stable staff are not permitted in candidate chambers. "Support witness in an active white lamp case," I said. The guard looked at the chief elder. The chief elder sighed. "Let him in." Jonah stepped inside and whispered, "You're enjoying this." "A little." "Good." The side chamber smelled of old ink, rain-damp stone, and expensive tea no one offered me. 3 elders sat across from me. Not Merowyn, not Varek, not anyone young enough to think shouting was strategy. The chief elder folded his hands. "Candidate Seryn, the clan recognizes the awakening as valid." I heard. "We also recognize that your father's breeding line may have been misclassified after his death." "May have." His eyes narrowed slightly. I smiled slightly. He corrected himself. "Was misclassified." "Progress." He continued. "The clan would prefer to resolve this without further damage to Ashvale unity." There it was. Unity. A beautiful word people discover after they lose control. "What does resolve mean?" I asked. "Restoration of your active candidate status, formal apology, private compensation of 300 gold crowns, full access to breeding archives, a senior mentor, and protection from retaliation." Jonah's eyebrows rose. In my first life, I would have collapsed at that offer. 300 gold crowns was more money than my branch had seen in 5 years. Archive access was everything I had begged for. Protection sounded like safety. But I had learned something about private compensation. It compensates privately. The damage happened publicly. So did the correction. "No," I said. One elder coughed. "No. I will accept active candidate restoration, archive access, and protection. The apology will be public. The compensation goes into a welfare fund for misclassified beasts and underranked handlers. Jonah will be appointed junior welfare recorder with pay equal to a third-rank handler." Jonah made a small choking sound. The chief elder looked at him, then back at me. "That is unusual." "So is a royal storm lion, awakening from a defective crate." "Fair." He tapped one finger on the table. "And Varek." I looked through the open archway toward the arena. Varek was surrounded by people who had adored him 1 hour earlier and were now standing 2 steps farther away. The speed at which social distance becomes physical distance should be studied. "He signed the contract," I said. "Follow it." The elders exchanged glances. They had hoped I would ask for something emotional. Exile, humiliation, a duel, some dramatic demand they could soften to look wise. I asked for procedure. Much harder to dismiss. The chief elder nodded. "The contract requires heir status suspension pending review." "How long?" "Up to 90 days. "No," I said. "The public declaration draft named him primary heir today. His claim was based on Oraclash, my alleged incapacity, and the alternate beast's alleged defect. All 3 collapsed under witness. Interim heir recognition should transfer to the valid awakened line while review continues." One elder stared. "You know succession law." I thought about 7 years of being crushed under it. "I know what was used against me." The room went quiet. Not uncomfortable. Accurate. The chief elder leaned back. "You asked to be named interim beast line successor." I asked the clan to apply its rules without checking whether Varek's feelings survived. Jonah looked at the floor very hard, probably to hide a smile. The chief elder's gaze dropped to Thessa. She sat beside my foot, licking moon barley from one paw like an ancient royal bloodline with absolutely no concern for legal history. At last, he said, "Accepted pending full review." Outside, the crowd noise swelled. Varek must have heard. He burst into the chamber 12 seconds later, because consequences had not yet taught him doors. "You can't do this," he said. The chief elder's expression turned glacial. "Candidate Varek, you are not permitted in review chambers." "I am the heir." "Not currently." 3 words. So small. So devastating. Varek looked at me. For the first time since I woke in that pen, he did not look smug. He looked young, spoiled, terrified, angry at gravity for working. "Seryn," he said, switching tactics so fast I almost respected the survival instinct. "We're family." I looked at Thessa, then at Jonah, then at the elders. "No," I said, "we're relatives. Family doesn't leave sick cubs in dirty straw and call it mercy." Varek lost the sash before sunset. Not permanently at first. The clan liked procedures too much for that, but publicly, visibly, and in front of the same sponsor houses he had invited to admire him. A junior clerk removed the white-and crimson heir sash from his shoulder on the arena platform, while the chief elder read the suspension order. No one cheered. That would have been ugly. But the silence had texture. Shock from the outer branches, calculation from the sponsors, deep personal discomfort from everyone who had laughed when I entered with Thessa. I stood 3 steps behind the chief elder with Thessa at my side. Not in front. I did not need to perform victory. The white lamp had done enough talking for one day. The official findings were careful. Candidate Seryn Ashvale entered public bonding trial with disputed inheritance beast. Candidate Varek failed command acknowledgement. Candidate Varek applied false handling pressure during witness phase. Inheritance beast Oraclash rejected continued bond. Candidate Seryn Ashvale successfully awakened alternate inheritance beast under white lamp authority. Alternate beast identified by senior archivist as Royal Stormlion dormant line. Candidate Seryn's care records accepted for review. Candidate Seryn named interim beastline successor, pending 90-day full audit. Every sentence landed like a stone in water. Ripples spread. Master Pell's clinic seal was suspended by evening. By the next morning, 14 families had requested review of prior, weak resonance diagnoses. By the end of the week, that number became 37. Funny how many defective candidates appear when one physician is paid to measure them wrong. Elder Merowyn lost oversight of inheritance allocations. She remained an elder, for the moment, but her committee seats were frozen, her scribe was reassigned, and her private correspondence with Master Pell was sealed under sponsor witness. Varek's friends discovered urgent reasons to train elsewhere. Ivala stopped echoing him and began telling people she had always felt the cub had presence. I admired the creativity. Not the integrity, but definitely the creativity. As for Varek, he tried everything. First outrage. Then threats. Then bargaining. On the second evening, he came to the welfare yard where Thessa and I had moved temporarily. Jonah was installing new latch hooks, paid work now, though he still looked suspicious of receiving wages. Varek stopped outside the gate. He wore no sash. Without it, he looked smaller. "Seryn," he said, "I want to talk." "No." His jaw tightened. "You haven't heard what I'm offering." "I heard enough for 2 lifetimes." He glanced at Jonah, privately. "No." Jonah kept working, but the hammer in his hand went still. Varek lowered his voice. "I can give you 500 gold crowns." "No." Full apology. "You owe that publicly anyway." "A joint succession petition. We can present unity. You keep the cub, I take Oraclash after mediation. We both win." I looked at him for a long moment. He genuinely thought that was compromise. "You still think beasts are objects," I said. His face hardened. "Don't pretend this is about beasts. This is about you wanting revenge." "It was about revenge on day 1, I admitted. Maybe day 2. By day 3, it was about keeping Thessa alive. By day 7, it was about making sure no one else gets buried under your version of winning." He looked past me at Thessa. She was asleep in a patch of late sun, paws twitching, faint silver sparks appearing and vanishing around her whiskers. "She would have awakened for me," he said. "No. You don't know that." "I do." "Because you have some secret." "Yes." His eyes sharpened. I stepped closer to the gate. "The secret is that she is not yours." For once, he had no answer. "Not a good one, not even a bad one." He gripped the gate bar. "You're going to let them strip my status." "I'm going to let the contract you signed do what it says." "You could speak for me." "I could." Hope flashed across his face. I let it live for exactly 1 second. "I won't." His knuckles whitened. Jonah moved slightly, not between us, but close enough. Varek saw that too. In the first timeline, Jonah had been invisible to him. A stable boy, a pair of hands, someone to order, blame, ignore. Now Jonah had a title, a witness record, and the quiet confidence of someone who had watched a royal Stormlion place trust before power. Varek released the gate. "You'll regret humiliating me," he said. I smiled. "Varek, you invited 4,000 people." He left. Not dramatically. Just walking away through dust, without music, without followers, without the beast he stole or the title he assumed was permanent. Consequences are not always loud. Sometimes they are just the sound of no one hurrying after you. 90 days later, the full Bloodline review ended. By then, Thessa had doubled in size and developed the deeply royal habit of sitting on documents whenever people became too serious around her. Oraclash had recovered in neutral care. The senior archivist confirmed what I already knew. The Drake had been registered to my father's line through breath rhythm inheritance, not General Ashvale blood. That meant Varek never had a valid kinhandler claim. His emergency suitability petition had been built on a false medical assessment, biased elder approval, and a very expensive misunderstanding of how beasts work. He lost heir status permanently. Not exile, not prison, not anything melodramatic enough for him to turn into a legend. He was demoted to probationary candidate under supervision, barred from inheritance disputes for 9 years, fined 700 gold crowns for false claim damages, and required to complete 1,200 hours of welfare yard labor before handling any high-grade beast again. I heard he lasted 6 days before complaining that cleaning stalls was beneath him. The welfare yard goats disagreed. Master Pell lost his clinic license, and had to repay 37 families for fraudulent resonance assessments. Elder Merowyn stepped down from allocation authority and retired to the South Breeding Annex, where her main responsibility became reviewing historical feed logs. A poetic ending, really. She had spent years ignoring details. Now details were her whole job. Jonah became junior welfare recorder. Then senior welfare recorder, 11 months later. Then the first non-blood handler admitted to Ashvale beast law training in 60 years. He pretended not to be proud, but he wore his new blue recorder sash every day for 2 weeks, even while mucking stalls, which somewhat ruined the pretending. As for me, I became the recognized beast-line successor of the Ashvale clan. Not because I shouted the loudest. Not because I forced the strongest beast to kneel. Because a discarded cub chose my hand in front of the white lamp, and I had 7 days of boring records proving I had earned that choice. The clan changed slowly. Of course it did. Families built on tradition do not wake up kind because one girl and one cub embarrassed them before breakfast, but rules changed. No stimulant therapy without classification. No forced command training during trial preparation for juvenile beasts. No inheritance reassignment without independent welfare review. No medical assessment from a single paid physician. And my personal favorite, every candidate had to complete 40 hours of observation training before touching a command rod. The first year, the young cousins complained. The second year, bite injuries dropped by 32%. After that, they complained more quietly. Thessa grew into her bloodline at her own pace. At 6 months, she could call rain in a circle no wider than a tea table. At 1 year, she could silence a thunder gong by staring at it, which became a problem because she disliked morning drills. At 2 years, she stood shoulder-high beside me, silver mane threaded with blue-white light, eyes clear as storm glass, still leaning her entire weight against my leg whenever she wanted attention. Royal dignity, apparently, did not include personal space. Sometimes I thought about the first timeline. I thought about the frightened cub in dirty straw. I thought about my own hands forcing power where trust should have been. I thought about the years I wasted trying to become the kind of tamer the clan respected. Regression did not make me innocent. That was the hardest part to accept. It gave me knowledge, yes. It gave me another chance. It gave me the chart burned into memory, the dates, the clauses, the markings, the failures, the exact shape of Varek's arrogance. But it also gave me responsibility for what I chose next. So I chose better. Not perfectly, better. On the anniversary of the trial, I visited the old auction pen. It had been cleaned and converted into a quarantine nursery. Fresh straw, warm lamps, rainwater basins, no iron hooks, no stimulant powder in the cracks. Thessa walked beside me, enormous and silent, her mane brushing the doorframe. Jonah met us there with 4 new cub records and a grin he tried to hide behind a clipboard. "You're late," he said. "The beast-line successor is never late." He raised an eyebrow. "Fine," I said. "Thessa saw a puddle." Thessa looked away with great innocence. Inside the nursery, 3 young candidates sat quietly beside nervous hatchlings, not touching, not commanding, just breathing. One of them looked up at me. "Lady Seryn," she whispered, "how do you know when they're ready?" I knelt beside her, the same way I had knelt in the arena. "You don't decide they're ready," I said. "You learn enough to recognize when they decide to trust you." Thessa lowered her head, and the hatchlings went still. Not afraid. Listening. I placed my scarred palm against her mane and felt the storm purr beneath my fingers. In my first life, I thought power meant making the world answer when I called. In this one, I learned that real power begins when you stop shouting long enough to hear what was answering all along.